What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into this edition of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. James Franklin's contract has been released. What does the assistant coaching salary pool look like for the Hokies? Hint, it's pretty high up there. And what's Lane Kiffin's situation at Ole Miss? All that and much more coming up on this edition of Talking with Teel, which starts right now. And we're recording on Tuesday, November 25th, 2025 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer this show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. And as always, we are joined by the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel. Teel, happy Thanksgiving. Good to see you.
And to you guys, good to see you all.
Commonwealth Clash Week in Charlottesville, a busy week in Blacksburg. Let's talk about James Franklin's contract. You guys mentioned it on the podcast yesterday, a 5-year, $41.75 million deal, and structured a little interestingly. 2026, Hokies are paying $6 million, $2 million from Penn State. 2027, Hokies are paying $5 million, $3 million from Penn State. 2028, they're paying $4 million. The additional $4 million coming from Penn State, and then 2029, $12.75 million. That is completely from Virginia Tech. 2030, $13.25 million. That is also completely from Virginia Tech. We mentioned this a little bit last week, but what are your thoughts on the way the contract is structured for James Franklin and Blacksburg?
Well, backloaded as we suspected it might be because of the Penn State buyout. And I suspect, guys, that part of the delay in getting this deal done was the negotiation with Penn State regarding the buyout. To me, the most striking aspects of the term sheet are not James Franklin's numbers, but the numbers for support staff, recruiting, and assistance. And we can get into those specifics if you care to, but that is what I think really shows Virginia Tech's investment in the program and takes us back to August and with Babcock's presentation to the board.
Teel, on those numbers, $9.5 million for assistance, $6 million for support staff. That's, roughly, not quite, but roughly double what they were paying in both of those aspects before. Is that just another sign that this is a program that's serious about football again?
Absolutely. And, we'd outlined it to the board in pretty stark terms that investment and commitment were not meeting expectations. And like a typical old person, I'm kind of a pack rat, not necessarily physical things that stack up in the corner of a closet, but I like to hoard documents. And I have all the financials from all the ACC public schools dating back a handful of years, their annual NCAA financial filings. So when Virginia Tech released those contract terms, I was able to compare Virginia Tech's commitment to where Florida State and Clemson and Carolina with Belichick are. And the Hokies compare quite favorably. I mean, you look at recruiting, especially. Virginia Tech went from $1.2 million in fiscal year 2024 to a $3 million commitment. That's 150%. Support staff doubled, $3 million to $6 million. Will that be strictly salary? Is that a volume of people? Probably a combination of both. And then the assistant coaches went up about 50% from $6.4 million to 9.5, which again puts Virginia Tech right up at the top of the league. Carolina has committed $10 million to Belichick's 10 assistant coaches. So this is going to be a well-compensated staff, and certainly should allow James Franklin to go out and recruit some name assistants.
I was going to ask about that specifically. I mean, $9.5 million. You can hire some pretty good OC and DC candidates with that amount. It seems like Tech is always sort of like settled for candidates, or just inched over the $1 million mark, which a lot of the big boy schools broke that a decade plus ago. And Virginia Tech is now catching up. What will this allow them to do for an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, potentially, with the targets that they have?
Well, just look at the coordinators that Justin Fuente and Brent Pry brought in when they first accepted these jobs. They were not established power conference coordinators. James Franklin has an opportunity here to go out and hire just that. People that we and fans are going to know about. And I would expect nothing less. And I know Ricky Rahne at his weekly press conference here in Norfolk yesterday attempted to shoot down all the rumors. It was like a 4-minute rambling kind of answer. I was like, do we protest too much here? Or where was Ricky going? Am I not allowed to have friends? He's my friend, and everybody can become a media person. I mean, he was all over the map. And I don't know if he was expecting the question or wasn't, but it was a very curious response to me.
That's one of those, like, my I'm not interested in the Virginia Tech OC position t-shirt is prompting a lot of questions already answered by the shirt. Like, you don't need to go overboard with this whole thing. Like, you're only putting more of a spotlight on it. I feel like it, at least I wasn't there for the thing, but is that what it seemed like?
Yes, it was. And, I guess he couldn't help himself. And when he was pressed by one of the television reporters, now, just to be clear, you're saying that you will be back here next year, or I'm saying that we haven't talked about this job, and he really didn't answer the follow-up.
He left a pretty big caveat there too. He's like, as long as the administration will have me here. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And is that a contractual thing you're looking at there? So there's always ways to weasel around it.
And Andy, that's an interesting point. Ricky Rahne has 1 year left on his contract.
Really? I did not realize that.
Yes. So is this a leverage play?
Interesting. While we're on the topic of Ricky Rahne, do you feel like, I mean, obviously he and James Franklin and Brent Pry and that trio kind of ran the ship together a little bit at Penn State for a couple of years. Do you feel like it just that position for Rahne potentially going from being the head guy in this era where we've talked about it before, ODU probably doesn't have necessarily the revenue to retain a guy like Colton Joseph, a really good quarterback in this era. Do you think it's easier for, we don't obviously cover Old Dominion, so it's hard to tell as far as where Rahne stands, but do you feel like it might be easier for Rahne to just say, you know what, I've had a good run as a head coach, but it's easier for me in this era, less to deal with, to just go be an offensive coordinator somewhere and kind of get the band back together a little bit?
Well, it depends on what he's looking at. And I don't know him well enough, David, to realize his career aspirations and such. I mean, they're in the midst of arguably their best FBS season. They went 10-3 back in 2016. But I would tell you this team is better and has accomplished more than that squad. They are 8-3 entering the regular season finale against last place Georgia State. The game is in Norfolk. The Monarchs are going to finish or should finish undefeated at home. Then they'll have their bowl. But you look at, they housed Virginia Tech at Lane. They gave Indiana as good a game, really, as most people in the Big Ten have. And it's really been a good run. They had the blip. They lost the back-to-back games at Marshall and James Madison in lopsided fashion. But right now there is one team in the country that has won its last 3 games by at least 25 points. And that is the Old Dominion Monarchs. They are rolling right now.
Teel, is it a little bit, I don't even know how to word this. Is it a little bit hard to believe the tier Virginia Tech is in financially with all this stuff? I mean, like, obviously the BOV approved that plan in August, and that's gotten a lot of attention. But Virginia Tech is truly up there with some of the top dogs in all of college football. We mentioned the assistant coaching salary pool. You got all like the TV bonuses too, where if Virginia Tech finishes at the number 1 spot in the ACC in television revenue, that's an $800,000 bonus. If it's number 2, it's a $400,000 bonus. It just is a very interestingly well-structured contract. And when you look at the financials going into what James Franklin can do at Virginia Tech, and not to ramble, but we talked about this all the time on this podcast and on the Tech Sideline podcast, it was going to have to get to that point to bring James Franklin to Blacksburg. But is it almost, when you see these numbers with where Virginia Tech has been the last 2 decades, is it almost surprising for you and you, Andy, that's covered this program for so long, to see where Virginia Tech is amongst the college football ranks?
I think Virginia Tech had an epiphany, Carter. And it dawned on them, we can't do this anymore. We can't lag behind and expect to recapture the Beamer years. And if we truly want to be competitive, to matter again, to make Enter Sandman a real thing where it is a home field advantage, not just because of the entrance, but because of the athletes coming out of that tunnel to that entrance, then we have to ante up, and we have to ante up in a big way. And you mentioned the television bonus for Franklin. That is so innovative and obviously a reflection of the new ACC revenue distribution model. I really want to know whose idea that was, because I think it's ingenious, and it's a motivation and a carrot to Franklin and the administration to schedule in a way that Virginia Tech can, that Franklin can attain those bonuses and draw more eyeballs.
So you're saying that maybe they should reschedule that VMI opener next year. If you want to get this bonus at the end of the year, hey, play somebody other than VMI in the opener. That might be a wise decision there.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about that last week, and that's got to change. It just seems so anticlimactic.
I think what's striking about the money involved is that for the longest time, I kind of wondered whether Virginia Tech had this potential to reach into its donor class and get this kind of much money. I think that's where the James Franklin hire specifically becomes so valuable. Are these donors going to give this much money if it's somebody other than James Franklin? This guy's a magnetic personality. He's done it before. You see how he works a room. I mean, he had total command of that press conference the other day. The way he talks to recruits, the way I imagine he talks to boosters in those kind of situations. This is a guy who can get people to donate a lot of money. I think if you hired Bob Chesney, you go, yeah, you got a really good football coach, but are people writing $15 million checks for Bob Chesney? Probably not. But they are for James Franklin, from the sounds of it. Sounds like there's some major donations that are coming in, and that allows you to spend this other kind of money. So I think it all kind of goes in hand. They hired the right coach to be able to get people to donate a lot of money, and in turn, they're able to spend a lot of money to help that coach succeed.
I imagine, Andy, he's going to be really good on the Hokie Club circuit.
Oh yeah,
I just have to believe that. How he was in the press conference, what a great play to immediately go to the core and get them riled up. And then when he sat with us in the breakout session, he was equally polished. And then when he sat with Bill Roth and Mike Burnip in the indoor, which I guess was a couple days later, that was an interesting listen. And I don't know if it struck you guys, but when he talked about the weather difference between Blacksburg and State College and how he conceded that, hey, college football is an entertainment business, and maybe his program needs to be a little more wide open on the offensive side.
Yeah.
What do you think Penn State fans are thinking hearing that? It's like,
Yeah.
we've been saying that for years. And now you're going to blame it on the weather. That's why you ran an offense that couldn't gain any yards up there. I imagine that's not going over well in Happy Valley.
Yeah.
And Andy, do we think James Franklin cares how
No,
well it goes
absolutely
over?
not.
Certainly not.
Yeah, that was recorded on Friday. I did find that funny. There were a bunch of other comments too about he talked about recruiting the state and how he was kind of a beneficiary at times because the coaches in the Commonwealth did not necessarily do a great job of retaining the talent in state, and that Penn State was able to come in and pluck that out. I think this hire is so interesting, Teel, from a recruiting perspective, because the guy who ran the Commonwealth for so long in terms of recruiting was doing so from the outside. And now he comes in and he's at what he would call the flagship university in this state. What do you make of this from the recruiting side, and also that he's already got a bunch of staff in place, and that they, we're 8 days away from signing day, that the Hokies are kind of all steams ahead or all systems go, I should say.
Yeah, all hands on deck. And clearly, in my mind, a shot at Justin Fuente and kind of secondarily Bronco Mendenhall, and coaches who probably didn't prioritize the state as much as they should have. Clearly, before Mendenhall at UVA, Mike London did. And I think Brent Pry deserves some credit for, mending fences with many of the state programs. He worked very hard at that. Whether he finished the job probably remains to be seen. But I think he gives hands off to James Franklin a much better in-state recruiting situation than Pry inherited from Fuente.
No, the Level 7 podcast with Bill and Mike in the indoor the other day was an awesome listen. And the one thing they asked that is a very, very good point, we talked about it a little bit, is the league is very much up there for the taking. Like, who in the ACC really scares you long-term? Mike Norvell's coming back at Florida State. I don't know if Dabo's really figured out the NIL era at Clemson. Virginia's having a good year, but they lose their quarterback. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, SMU's been consistent, but who truly long-term scares you in the ACC? The league is very up there for the taking, and there's a reason why, and we can go roundtable with it, there's a reason why it is not even optimistic, it is rightful to expect Virginia Tech to compete in the ACC, maybe even by the end of his first year in Blacksburg. Maybe that's optimistic, but I think there's a chance he can very, very, very well compete in the ACC in today's day and age.
Carter, just look at this weekend. There are still 6 teams contending for the ACC championship game. We could still, if all hell breaks loose, have a 6-way tie at 6-2 and have 5-loss Duke in the ACC championship game. I mean, it's not going to happen, but it could. I mean, that's how open this league is. And there is still chatter out there, and you don't know how it's going to play out, because anybody who tends to tell you they know how the carousel will end is lying to you. But there's still chatter out there about Brent Key and Jeff Brom being possible candidates at some of these jobs out there. And if Georgia Tech and Louisville have to start anew, there's no telling. And I agree with your premise. It is not unreasonable to expect Virginia Tech to contend in this conference, if not immediately, then certainly by 2026.
Well, it boils down to how quickly you can remake a roster these days.
Yeah.
If you have the financial backing and you put the money in the right places, that can be a 1-year thing. You can bring in 50 new players next year. I mean, look what UVA did. UVA was not good last year, but they spent wisely. They found a quarterback, chief among all their additions that they had. And Now here they are, on the cusp of the ACC title game, and I don't think anybody imagined that. So, yes, it's very possible to turn it around that quickly, and I would expect James Franklin to have a pretty major effect on this roster going forward. We were kind of talking about Penn State there. Teel, what do you think Penn State's going to do? Do you think they can come out looking good on this whole thing? Where, I mean, nationally, it seems like everybody's kind of looking at this situation going, Penn State might have messed up here.
Yeah, you wonder if they're not buyer's remorse, but seller's remorse in any way. And it's interesting. I was listening to the College Game Day podcast this morning, and Pete Thamel, who's obviously as connected as anyone nationally, said Penn State is the most mysterious of the openings, that you really don't have a pulse on where this one might go. And I did a podcast last night with some guys up in State College, and Andy, you had gone on with them previously as well. And they wanted to know as much as they could about Bob Chesney. And certainly he makes some sense there, given his roots and his accomplishments at every level. But he's clearly, he does not have James Franklin's resume by any stretch, especially at the Power 4 level. And so, no, I really don't have a feel for where Penn State might turn. But it will be fascinating to compare and contrast the arcs of the Hokies and the Nittany Lions moving forward.
Do you believe this Kalen DeBoer stuff that's out there, that he's a true candidate at Penn State?
No. Now, if he loses the Iron Bowl,
well, that's the thing. I think that's what they're banking on. Is if he doesn't do well, believe me. Don't lose the Iron Bowl if you want to keep your job. In both sides in that game. That's not a game you want to lose in that one. I find it hard to believe that he would leave one of the most resource schools in the country in Alabama, one of the most prestigious, to go to, Penn State is a great program, but it has not won a national title in 40 some years. That seems like a step back to me.
Right. And wouldn't it be, Andy, an admission that I couldn't do this? It was too big for me. And that is not how most coaches are wired. And, unless a loss to Auburn made life untenable, not really for him, but for his family. And that to me is where, we've all heard Shane Beamer talk about the stories of when the Hokies weren't doing well under his dad and how miserable his life could get at school and the things he heard just around town. Well, it's far worse now, and we can't begin to understand what the families endure when things aren't going well.
I wonder if it would just be like a tacit admission that, hey, never be the guy after the guy. Like, I'm never going to be able to live up to their expectations here. Even if you feel like you can do it. I wonder if you just like, can I pull the ripcord on this and get somewhere else?
Yeah. And not only losing the Iron Bowl, but losing the Iron Bowl when it cost you a spot in the SEC championship game, and B, a spot in the college football playoff.
I think as far as Penn State goes, it'll be very interesting. James Franklin's already come out and said he's taken a bunch of recruiting staffers from Penn State. And I'm sure there'll be a couple staff members that come, but they've got to wait until Penn State's season's over. But on top of that, players, and we've already seen it on the recruiting trail. There are a bunch of Penn State commits. And we were talking about the opportunity, Carter, that the ACC is open. I mean, if James Franklin can pull some of these guys from the Penn State roster, who knows the caliber of players, but it just feels like he might take some of the best from Penn State between staff, between recruits, between current players, and combine that with some of the talent at Virginia Tech, and then whip up something in the transfer portal, and you're kind of off to the races. And we've seen it. Kurt Cignetti, I think, is a great example of James Madison to Indiana, where it's like you can hit the ground running immediately. You've got the financial backing. All you need is really a dude at quarterback, and you can go have a pretty good team.
David, you hit it at the end. You got to find that dude, not under center, because not many of them are under center anymore. But you have got to find the quarterback, and if you can make that work, and hey, that's what Justin Fuente did back before the portal. He found Gerard Evans, and bingo, year one, ACC championship game.
And it went downhill quarterback wise.
Yes.
I mean, by the
Yes.
end, that quarterback room was, Braxton Burmeister, Connor Blumrick, and Knox Kadum.
Yeah. They had Hendon Hooker for a while.
I mean, that's not a Division I quarterback room. One was a wide receiver, one was a H-back essentially, and then one was an FCS quarterback. I mean, it's just it wasn't up to the standard that you need for the ACC, and you saw it on the field.
To your point about Penn State, you look at their season this year, they're 5-6 right now, and they play Rutgers this weekend. So there's an opportunity for the Nittany Lions to get to a bowl game. If they do get to a bowl game, forget the roster for a minute. How would that affect the timeline in which the staff would join, or at least parts of the staff would join James Franklin in Blacksburg, do you think?
Great question that I really don't know the answer to. And I think how quickly does Penn State move in hiring its new coach? And I would absolutely expect Penn State to beat Rutgers on Saturday. Scarlet Knights are having a real difficult time of late. And to get bowl eligible, and then how many of those guys are going to opt out and hit the portal? Would Penn State say we're not interested in a bowl invitation?
You never know now.
I'd be surprised about that.
Yeah.
I'd be leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but
Conferences wouldn't like that either.
Yeah, but that's just
We've seen it before.
True.
Yeah.
True.
That's just such an interesting scenario, because Terry Smith, the interim head coach, I mean, what's going on at Penn State right now, where it's like he is basically pitching for the job, and I mean, he was wearing the Joe Paterno pin the other day, and it's like
Is that helping his cause?
I think
Maybe in Penn State.
I think
not
helping the
nationally,
support
it's
for
not drawing him any
some.
sympathy. I don't.
Yeah, with a certain segment, with an older segment.
Yeah, he's certainly trying to
Penn
play
State.
to the Paterno backers that are still up there.
Yeah, but it's interesting because he's like drumming up support, rallying the troops, rallying some people behind him. I mean, there were players and fans holding up Terry Smith signs. And it's interesting because if he doesn't get this job, he could be one of the top guys coming and joining James Franklin in Blacksburg.
Oh, I don't think there's a could there, is there, David? If he doesn't get the job, he's wearing maroon next season, right?
Oh, yeah. That's what I would
Unless
assume.
the new coach keeps him. I mean, he's a Penn State guy. He's like their JC Price a little bit in that sense.
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's so many ripple effects from this, because the Penn State coaching decision, Terry Smith's a really good recruiter. There are guys who Terry Smith ends up coming to Virginia Tech. It's all right. We're following him on top of James Franklin, of course.
Do you think there's a chance they actually, back to your initial question, do you think there's a chance they actually hire Terry Smith?
No,
I don't.
They're not going to give into the public pressure.
no.
I can't imagine you make the move to get rid of James Franklin to promote one of James Franklin's underlings on that staff.
Sure.
I think that the move was to create a separation from that staff and try to elevate beyond that. And I mean, he's done all right. He's what, 2-3 or something?
Yeah, they didn't win a game, or they beat Michigan
3
State
3 or
last
something like
week.
that. So
Yeah.
it's not like he ran off a string of like 7 straight wins or had some huge upset wins or something like that. It might be different if they had beaten Ohio State or something like that, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Andy, I agree with you, but I will cite 2 examples to the contrary. Dabo Swinney at Clemson and Brent Key at Georgia Tech.
Well, Brent Key, I thought, had some wins in that first year that were
Oh, he
somewhat
did.
impressive.
Oh, he absolutely. He had ranked wins that first year.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that out of Penn State yet. I mean, they beat what, Michigan State, and
Nebraska this weekend.
They throttled Nebraska.
They should have beaten Indiana.
Rayola-less
Yes.
Nebraska. Yeah, I mean, they give Indiana a game, so possibly. Enough Penn State. Teel, where's Lane Kiffin going? That's what I really want to know. I always want to talk about Lane Kiffin constantly. It has nothing to do with this podcast, really, but I want to know your opinion on it.
Well, and this is exactly what Lane Kiffin wants, Andy. He wants all the attention all of the time. He is, without a doubt, the biggest diva to ever grace a college football side.
But that's what makes him great, right? That's what we love about him.
Oh, 100%, unless you're an Ole Miss fan, in which case you want to throttle this guy for, in the midst of your, what is arguably the greatest season in program history, no offense to Archie Manning, you are putting us through this? Really? If he were staying, wouldn't he have said so by now? Why risk it with the Egg Bowl coming up? Why prolong the distractions and risk? Now he may know his, obviously he knows his locker room better than we, but risk locker room insurrection that could derail the Rebs' college football playoff hopes and would certainly eliminate any remote chance they have of getting into the SEC championship game. If you were staying, wouldn't you say so? Because if you do say so, then everybody's rah-rah and the players are fired up. You go out and kick Mississippi State's tail, and you're a 5 or a 6 seed in the playoff. You're getting a home game. I think he's out of there.
I do agree with that. Can I raise another point, though? Is there a chance he's doing this for attention just because he's Lane Kiffin?
Of course.
Is there a chance about that?
Oh, sure there is.
This was the guy that they had to fire from Alabama, fired him right before the national championship game because he couldn't handle the Florida. He was taking the Florida Atlantic job of all jobs. And they're like, he's just milking this too much. And Nick Saban got tired of it. Now Nick Saban, all of a sudden, I want to ask you about this college game day nonsense that they've concocted here. And Lane Kiffin's the victim in this whole thing. And we need to change the system. It's like, he's the one creating this controversy. These coaches don't need to leave every year. They could stay where they are and it wouldn't be an issue.
100%. And Nick Saban sitting there on that desk and defending him Saturday after Nick Saban, had kicked him to the curb before the national championship game was so rich. And I wish someone had called him out on it. Reese Davis is usually pretty good at pushing back on BS. But in this case, he was far too deferential to Nick Saban.
Yeah, the stuff Saban is asking for is unreasonable. He's like, well, we got to line this up. The hiring calendar needs to be lined up with the academic calendar. It's like, well, the hiring calendar is what it is because of the academic calendar. You can't move the start of the next semester. And they've already moved the transfer portal to such an inconvenient time for anybody who's actually looking to change schools right before the semester starts that this idea that this is still college football. There is still supposed to be a school element to this whole thing. Like they will eventually break off and just admit this is a minor league sport. But for now, ostensibly, this is still a college sport that they're doing here. The idea that they have to separate this and line up, think about coaches switching schools among all else just seems completely asinine to me.
Just think if they did break off and just cut the academic component out of it and just had Virginia Tech and Alabama and Penn State act as team sponsors, think of all the money they'd save in scholarships.
Good point. I will say that that giant contract that LSU's reportedly offering Lane Kiffin, sponsored by the governor. I mean,
wasn't he just complaining about these giant contracts?
Yes.
Right.
They just can't help themselves down there.
That that looks like a mighty fine contract to me. But also, Lane Kiffin, he flew to Baton Rouge. like in the middle of a game
His
week.
And
family
Gainesville. And Gainesville.
Like,
Both of them.
I'm with Teel. I feel like if he was staying, he would have made it a little bit harder for people to figure out where he was going. It's like he's like making a show out of all of this.
I almost kind of appreciate it. I just kind of marvel at him, like, you know what? You be you, Lane. Go do that. He should have like taken pictures on the tarmac and stuff too, just to go full like wrestling heel or something like that. I think that's his persona. Live up to it.
Who are we rooting for in the Egg Bowl?
Ooh. Ole Miss, because I want to see what it looks like if he doesn't coach the playoff and they get in. We've never seen that
Yeah.
before.
Typically, I would root for the underdog in that, but I want to see Ole Miss win just to make it as messy as possible for whatever Kiffin's going to do here.
You don't think he coached
agreed.
the playoff, would you? If he leaves, would they let him coach in the playoff?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
No,
No
I
way.
kind of want to see Mississippi State win just for the drama.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose
Like,
that game,
He's so well. I guess it would make it more interesting if he won and he was still leaving. I don't know. Is there a chance they make it in the SEC title game if they win?
Well, Alabama would have to lose the Iron
Well, that's a
Bowl.
possibility.
And some. I think there are some other things that would have to fall as well, David.
Could you imagine if Ole Miss wins and it sets up for Ole Miss to go to the SEC title game and Lane leaves?
ooh,
Oh,
Yeah, I'm in for the
Peter.
drama. I'm in it for the drama. You've got a question about Lincoln Riley on here?
well, yeah, it's just the way I worded it. I was going to ask you, this is totally off the wall. When Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma for USC a couple years ago, was totally out of nowhere. Can you predict, again, totally on the spot? Do you have a prediction do you have a prediction to see if there's a Lincoln Riley type move this year? Like if there's a coach that leaves for some random job, not that USC is a random job, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Is there a prediction you could possibly make where there's a coach that you don't expect to leave that's going to take a job out of nowhere that you maybe have in mind, Teel?
Marcus Freeman to the NFL.
Oh, okay.
That would be mine. I know maybe you were thinking along the college lines, and I don't think Marcus Freeman is leaving for a college gig, but I could see him being very appealing to the NFL.
No, I mean,
Hadn't even thought about that.
No, but I think that would send shockwaves through because then the ripple effect, right? I mean, if you remember, there weren't as many ripple effects because Oklahoma just went and hired Brent Venables, a coordinator from Clemson. But the ripple effects of who Notre Dame would hire, maybe you go Tommy Rees, but he's a hot name on on some people's boards. But there's just so many different ways this could go.
Ryan Day could strike me as another one. He coached in the NFL previously.
Yeah.
Some of these openings that are there might be enticing with that. So I don't know. It's tough to predict the out of nowhere that wouldn't make it out of nowhere if you saw it coming.
Maybe somebody will hire Phil Montgomery.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're going to talk about this year's team, a little bit about Philip Montgomery, and then Virginia Tech and Virginia on the other side of this break. But for now, let's step aside and hear from our title sponsor, State Farm, here on Talking with Teel. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, a group of State Farm agents that support TechSideline.com can switch you over to State Farm so you can start saving today. These State Farm agents and their team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. Check out Tech Sideline for the agent in your area. It's easy to switch and save. Just give them a call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And a big thank you to our title sponsor, State Farm, here on Talking with Teel. It was so interesting, David, recording that ad read a couple weeks ago, and it's like you got to say, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. That was
You
like
had to say like a good neighbor.
I did. It's in the ad read. I was
That's
reading it. I
awesome.
told Nick, I was like, this is insane right here. I feel like Jake from State Farm. So
That's cool.
but no, so we were talking about Philip Montgomery before the break, and he's somebody that, to be honest, I don't think we've talked about this a lot here because obviously the question has been the future in James Franklin. The first thing about Philip Montgomery is he deserves, in my opinion, a lot of credit for what he's done this year. They have not won a lot of football games, but I think they've won more than I think they were probably going to under Brent Pry, and he's kept that locker room together, and they've continued to play hard. With that being said, so he has not been a full-time head coach since 2022 at Tulsa. He was let go there, went to Auburn. Hugh Freeze let him go after, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, he didn't let him run his offense, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it became very clear once he got there that Hugh Freeze was going to meddle.
Okay.
I mean, Hugh Freeze had 3 different people calling plays this year based on what down it was. I think it's kind of obvious why he didn't work out.
That's a mess. So he leaves Auburn, he goes to the UFL, and he takes the Virginia Tech job back in February after Tyler Bowen leaves on a whim. With that being said, where do you guys see Philip Montgomery potentially being next year? Maybe a group of 5 head coach? That could be a little bit far-fetched, or do you maybe see him, being a coordinator somewhere again at the Power 4 level, Teel?
I think it's more a coordinator position, Carter. I'm with you that it seems a little far-fetched for him to land another head coaching job. And I agree wholeheartedly with you that he deserves a lot of credit for keeping the locker room together. And to a man, no player has failed to sing his praises, oftentimes unprompted, which I think is telling. Now, Andy and I talked about this Saturday night. He came in there after the Miami game, and for the first time, I sensed he's done. He no more wanted to be there and no more wanted to talk about that game. Not that I blame him, but to me, it was readily apparent that he's ready to pack the moving van.
Yeah, it's been a long month, I think. And you look at the schedule that they've played, and I mean, to Virginia Tech's credit, I don't think they've quit at all. Yeah,
No.
on the season or in any game individually. I think they've played to the end of all those games. They just don't have the firepower to keep up. And, Teel, I'm looking at this game. They're 11-point underdogs, or open as 11. I haven't seen what the line's done since then against UVA. Do you give them any shot in keeping this game close?
For a while, Andy, if they can run the ball against Miami, then certainly they can run the ball against Virginia. I mean, Virginia Tech had the 2 longest runs of the season against Miami. Number one, on the first play from scrimmage, when Marcellus Hawkins went 33 yards around the left side, and then on Jeff Overton's 38-yard touchdown run. Those are the 2 longest that the Hurricanes have allowed all season. And where did they finish with, David? $170 something?
I think $196. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Virginia's very good defensively, but if the Hokies can run it against that defensive front, that front 7, then surely they have a chance to run it Saturday night in Charlottesville. The question becomes, can they do anything remotely effective enough passing? And thus far, in every instance, the answer has been no. And Virginia made Darian Mensah, who was then the Power Four's leader in passing yards per game, look incredibly pedestrian 2 weeks ago in Durham.
Let me.
You guys talked about how Virginia did portal business in the offseason, and yes, Chandler Morris is the centerpiece of that. They did big time work on the defensive side with edge rushers and defensive backs, and it has paid serious dividends.
Let me correct myself here. 194 is what they ran for in that game, not 196. Teel, I think everything kind of points in Virginia's direction in this game. They're favored. They're playing for something. They're coming off an open week. Can get rested up there. If you were a UVA fan, how confident would you feel? I mean, there's a history. You can't ignore the history in this rivalry. And I feel like they might sort of feel like shelter pets here. Like they're just like a little skittish about going all in and saying they feel confident about the situation.
Oh, no, they're not confident at all. No. I mean, come on, man. Those scars run deep now. Go back. There were games where you were just, how did they lose? You go back to 2018 with Bryce Perkins, and you mentioned the 11-point spread. I went to the Odd Shark database, goes back 30 years. Never has Virginia been such a large favorite. And I was surprised to see what the biggest spread on Virginia in Virginia's favor was, and that was a 7-point line in 2021.
Yeah, the J.C. Price game.
Yeah, when if you look at the respective records, it was a fairly even match, but the Cavaliers were 7-point favorites, and obviously the Hokies won that day, and JC fired up the stogie, and I don't know if Philip Montgomery will have one in his pocket or not for Saturday. And then here's another little nugget. Never before has Virginia entered this game with 6 more wins than Virginia Tech.
Wow.
The disparity in records has never been this way on the Virginia side. Now in 2016, in Foo's first season, Tech was 9-2 or 8-3, and Virginia was 2-9. There was that 6-win disparity there. But those are the largest differences in victory total in series history.
Wow.
My advice to UVA would be, if there's a critical situation, do not throw a backward pass to the offensive tackle. That would be it's just, I'm not a football coach, but I'll just put that out there. Avoid that if possible.
That will be on Robert and I's tombstone.
Lateral to Bobby Haskins. This is the first time I believe since 1991 that the UVA is ranked and the Hokies are not in this game. Teel, going back to that Duke game you mentioned, you're talking about how the Cavaliers did such a good job on Darian Mensah. I'm curious on the other side. Chandler Morris, he's been banged up a little bit, but that offense looked really, really good against the Blue Devils. He's had a week to rest up. Do you expect a pretty good performance from that UVA offense?
I do, David. They had been in a funk for about a month before the Duke game, and really riding the defense's shoulders to all those close wins. And then the offense couldn't get it done without Chandler Morris in the loss to Wake Forest after he went out with the concussion there in the first half, and they had to go to back up Danny Kalin, the transfer from Nebraska. But it is a really good offense. They do not have a Malachi Toney caliber receiver, but they have more receivers who can beat you than Miami does. I think their receiver room is actually deeper than the Hurricanes. And the Hokies have not been getting to the quarterback. And if you give Chandler Morris time, and he had time against Duke did not sack Morris 2 Saturdays ago. And unless the Hokies can make him uncomfortable, it is going to be a long day for that defense.
So for the first time all year long, it's simple in the ACC. If Virginia wins, they're going to the ACC title game. If SMU beats Cal with an interim head coach, they're going to the ACC title game. Do you guys see it straight up, UVA and SMU in the ACC title game, or is there one last little bit of situationship going to happen in the ACC this upcoming weekend? What do you think?
It's fascinating, Carl, that they're both facing interim coaches.
Yes.
All you have to do is beat a team coached by an interim, and you're in the ACC championship game. And yes, I think that chalk is going to prevail, and that we'll have Virginia and SMU in Charlotte.
You dare to test the ACC gods with that kind of prediction? I think chalk is going to prevail in an ACC win and get in situation. I think so too, but I've seen enough of this league to know that crazy things happen every single week. And man, I'd love to see that 6-way tie. Is that the possibility?
Yeah.
I think it'd just be funny.
Yeah,
I'm rooting for it. I think that'd be great.
It'd be a tough look for the league, though.
It would be very
tough. The league is a tough look for
itself. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, it'd be really tough
good point.
because, as Teel said earlier, 6-way tie, Duke would be in the ACC title game at 7-5.
Oh, that is unreal.
That's
That is unreal.
All these group of 5 pushers, they're always like, the ACC is not guaranteed a spot in this. It's like, No, but they're probably going to get one. Like you have to continue winning to get there, and if they keep winning, they'll move in the rankings past, JMU and North Texas and Tulane and those teams, I would imagine. But if it's Duke and they're 7-5, they get in and then somehow win the ACC. I think that's the one scenario you look at and you go, I think 2 Group of 5 champions could be ahead of the ACC champion there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you and I are old enough to remember 2012 when the ACC was still with divisions, obviously, and Clemson and Florida State on the Atlantic side were both 10-2, and Georgia Tech went to the championship game from the Coastal at 6-6.
Was that the year Carolina would have gone, but sanctions prevented them from going
Carolina
to the ACC?
or Miami? I thought Miami was.
Was it both of them?
Guys, it was a 3-way tie between Carolina, Georgia Tech, and Miami at 5-3. But yes, Carolina and Miami were ineligible for the game, but Georgia Tech would have won the tiebreaker anyway.
Oh,
really?
okay. That takes it a little.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's unreal. Go ACC.
6-6 in the ACC championship game, and darn if they didn't give the Seminoles all they wanted. I think the final was 21-15, 21-16.
21-15. Good memory.
Wow, that's crazy. I see chalk too, Carter. But what I'm interested in is Teel. We're recording this on Tuesday morning. We'll get the new CFP rankings this evening. We'll see what the committee does with Miami. But it feels like at this point, with Georgia Tech losing, UVA might be the ACC's best shot to get a team in the playoff.
Well, the UVA, if it's UVA SMU, the winner is going to get in. I really believe that. If it's SMU, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Mustangs in the rankings tonight. Maybe not, but if they win the league, I don't see 2 G5s ahead of SMU. Could happen, but I'm dubious there. I am interested in your guys' reaction. Number one, 2 things. Who's going to win Miami? Pitt. And were you surprised that Florida State kept Mike Norvell after that fiasco Friday night in Raleigh?
Yes, I'm a little surprised they kept Norvell, just because. Yeah, I mean, they're like, well, they can't afford the buyout. It's like, well, the buyout next year is still like $50 million. Like, it's still a lot of money you'd have to pay. Are you setting things back a year? How much money are you going to lose from donations or just uninterested fans who are going to check out over the next year? I guess when you look at a big picture, do you want to jump into the fray in this coaching carousel? Perhaps that played a factor there. But it felt like if they were going to fire him, they were going to do it weeks ago. They had ample opportunity when Stanford, you lose at Stanford or a game like that, or lose badly at Clemson. They had opportunities to do it. So the longer it went on, I guess maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I still am a little surprised that they kept him for another season.
Yeah, as bad as you compare and contrast, Cal's performance against Stanford was so dreadful. And I texted somebody that night, Justin Wilcox fixing to get fired. And sure enough, it drops the next day. And I really thought watching Friday that Norvell was gone after that. But they chose otherwise. And it's going to be fascinating to see Fickle, Norvell, Loxley at Maryland. These guys who basically got a stay of execution, do they last next season and beyond, or even do they last into October next year? We saw what happened. Billy Napier got a stay, and it didn't matter.
Hey, Fickle's red hot right now.
Yes.
2 wins against ranked teams the last 3 weeks. Watch out for those Badgers.
I, for one, am not surprised at anything Florida State does because and I feel like nothing Florida State does make any sense. Like, you wanted to fire him, you should have done it a couple weeks ago. It's like, I didn't think they were going to do it. Teel, I actually think Pitt's going to win this weekend. It's supposed to be a high of 35 on Saturday in Pittsburgh. I think that is a team Narduzzi has playing very well. And I think it'll be very, very, very close. But I know Pitt did not play well against Notre Dame, bounced back well. But I think like we've seen this Miami team be good, but I just think that this is setting up for a game, as we talked about yesterday, perfect game for Miami to drop.
Do we ever trust Miami in a spot like this in late November? Absolutely not, especially on the road, as you mentioned, David, in cold weather. And I think there's one thing we can all guarantee: Saturday, high noon, there in the Steel City, Pat Narduzzi will not fake a punt.
We laughed at the Narduzzi gambit of get crushed by Notre Dame, then come back and win the next 2 games. But maybe he had a plan. Maybe he had a plan the whole time.
That fake, the 2 fakes on Saturday night, Narduzzi's miserably timed fake against Georgia Tech that gifted the Yellow Jackets a short field and let them back in the game. But then how about Manny Diaz?
That was a really nice play.
Oh,
very critical in covering the line on that one too. Was that our game of the week, David?
Yes,
it was. And I lost our game of the week because of that, but
I'm sorry, it was worth it. And the crazy thing is that Carolina was not prepared for that. Again, speaks to Belichick and his staff, because Todd Polino, the Duke kicker, has not had a good season. That field goal was in the mid-40s. He had missed a bunny earlier in the game. How are you not buttoned up for a fake in that spot? I was in the car listening to Sirius XM, and I said out loud, they're going to fake it. And sure enough, Jones Angel is saying, it's a fake. And he's at the 10, the 5, and I'm just laughing my butt off. It was amazing.
It was great. Really well executed, too. We were talking about Norvell. Teel, I brought this up yesterday on our podcast. The Noles have Alabama in September next year. Does Norvell?
I believe they opened, David.
What did you say?
I believe they open with that.
Yeah, I think it's in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. Does Norvell make it out of September?
I don't know what happens after that game with Florida State's schedule, but he will be on a very short leash.
Alabama's the least of Florida State's worries. They dominated Alabama this year. They own Alabama as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jake Dicker to Wisconsin and Manny Diaz to Florida State next year. My 2026 predictions.
Right?
Alum of Florida State, Jake Dicker is from Wisconsin. So those are my 2 bold predictions for next year. Right. By the way, Stick It In's back too, apparently. They played that during the second quarter. I loved it. It was awesome. If you're a Virginia Tech fan, you're like, yep, new era. We got Stick It In back too.
Do you think they're putting a feeler out there to see how many people complain about it?
Maybe.
Because they did it. They played it in that, was that UNC, the 6 overtime game.
They did.
They played it at the end of that. I think it might have been an unsanctioned playing of it. I can't remember, but I don't know. This one felt a little more intentional if they put it. That they did that, and then they never got back to the red zone after that, right?
Yeah, they did not. Well, you had a great tweet that they did not, in fact, stick it in the end zone because they settled for a field goal.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, and the Overton run was like a 40-yard touchdown run. So yeah, they never got. Yeah.
Oh well, Pops
was.
It's tougher to play that when you're down 17. I think.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I heard. Well, it sounds like that Franklin came in and said, what do we want back? And Stick It In was one of the things they want back. So we'll see if that continues.
Awesome. Teel, really appreciate your time as always. Again, happy Thanksgiving. Busy week. A lot to talk about with Virginia Tech, Virginia, James Franklin. By the way, just a quick side note too. I encourage everybody to listen to anything regarding or involving Jay Pearson. Encourage anybody out there to listen to anything involving him because he, to your point the other day, full IMAX movie. This whole thing that just happened. I mean, he goes through all sorts of details. Like Sunset Saturday did some of them last night. He goes through all sorts of details with like him talking to Glenn Youngkin and Abigail Spanberger. And then last week in terms of like the days this happened and who talked to who and who was calling who. I would encourage anybody to check out anything involving Jay Pearson if you want the whole details.
Got to get him
to
on
the
this
search.
set.
I know.
He's a human FOIA request.
He is.
Only helpful.
He really is. He took notes and everything. And guys, happy Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners. And if you will allow me a shameless plug, Pilot Online and Daily Press Black Friday special, $1 for a year. Come and subscribe, man. Just click on one of my stories. It'll cost you $1 for a year. I promise it's worth $1.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I
agree.
That's a great deal. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yeah. Oh, favorite
Nick,
food.
Nick says
wants
favorite
food.
My favorite Thanksgiving dish is the cranberry sauce.
Interesting.
I'm not a huge Thanksgiving food guy.
Really?
It says, yeah, it's my alternate take on this whole thing. Like, it's fine, but I don't like crave it. It's fine.
I'm into anything pumpkin.
Interesting. I'm a mac and cheese guy.
Of course you are.
I'll probably go mac and cheese of all this stuff. There,
Mac and cheese.
If Carter could have nachos at Thanksgiving dinner, he would have nachos.
Maybe. I've aged out of that a little bit. But yeah, maybe. By the way, nachos, $5 now at Castle Coliseum. I just can't stomach it. So I go in prepared. I've already eaten my meal. But Teel, happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you hopping on. We look forward to chatting next week. I know it'll be an interesting week with some basketball stuff. And then I would bet by this time next week, we're going to have some staffing news potentially. So hopefully we'll be able to break some of that down and plenty more coming up. So appreciate it as always.
And National Signing Day as well.
National Signing Day. We'll see if Penn State wins this week, and that could affect some things. So anyway, for the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel, for David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from this edition of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you very soon.